I married into the Marquis' mansion 3 years ago, took charge of the household, and urged my husband to study diligently every day, in order to help him pass the imperial examination. I drove his cousin, who was trying to seduce him, out of the mansion. 3 years later, my husband passed the imperial examination. However, the first thing he did was to divorce me in front of everyone, accusing me of being jealous. As a result, I became a laughingstock in Xinjiang. Upon reincarnation, I awoke just as I was about to enter the palace to audience with the emperor, who granted me a wish. My gaze fell upon the husband I had begged for in my previous life. I bowed low. This humble woman seeks only fame, fortune, and wealth beyond measure. Chapter 1. The eldest son of the Marquis of Yongnan passed the imperial examination, and the good news quickly spread to the Marquis' mansion. I stood with everyone in the mansion at the entrance, waiting for the Marquis to return. Suyu said with emotion, "Madam, it is all thanks to you that the Marquis was able to pass the imperial examination in one go. Through the cold winter and hot summer, you never slacked off for a single day. The Marquis was mischievous when he was young, but thanks to your advice and constant reminders, he has become the Marquis of today." As she spoke, Qi Zhili rode up on a fine horse, with flowers pinned in his hair. Seeing him stride toward me with such confidence, I began to feel nervous. "Husband." Suyu handed out the candies I had prepared earlier to the onlookers. Qi Zhili glanced around but did not acknowledge me, only giving a cold laugh. I sensed something was amiss. Suyu was still chattering away. "Marquis, now that you have passed the imperial examination, will you open the ancestral hall to inform the old Marquis and the Marquise?" Qi Zhili looked down at me from above, and his words sent a chill down my spine. "Xinqing Tang, do you think you can follow me and enjoy wealth and honor? Let me tell you, you're dreaming." I asked him in a daze. Why? I had given him my whole heart. Yet he turned out to be such a heartless monster. He looked at me with hatred. "Back then, you drove Ronger out of the mansion, leaving her alone and helpless. You should have known this day would come." Roer was Qi Zhili's cousin. Qi Zhili suddenly turned to the crowd, his tone cold. "Xinqing Tang has borne no children in 3 years and is jealous and malicious. There is already a rift between us. Those present may bear witness. I, Qi Zhili, hereby divorce my wife. From now on, we shall marry others and have no further connection." It was true that he had no concubines or mistresses, and it was true that I had kicked Lin Ro out of the mansion. But those were the last words of the old lady on her deathbed. She said, "Before the imperial examination, the Marquis must study hard every day, from dawn to dusk. You must not stop for a single day. You must not go near women, and you must keep all women out of your house. This is to avoid distracting the Marquis." Lin Ro lived in the Marquis' mansion and would always barge into the study when Qi Zhili was studying. I told her many times, but she would always hide behind Qi Zhili with an innocent look on her face. Qi Zhili would always say, "Ro is still young. She is a guest, so don't be too harsh on her." He didn't realize that I was a year younger than Lin Ro. When Qi Zhili wasn't around, Lin Ro would deliberately provoke me. The Marquis promised me that as long as he passes the imperial examination, he will demote you from wife to concubine. You are not worthy of being the Marquis' wife. There was even another time. She pestered Qi Zhili to go out and play, and didn't return to the mansion to study for half a month. When I tried to reason with the Marquis, he defended her again, taking advantage of the Marquis' absence. I sent Lin Ro back to her mansion. I simply said, "Lin Ro is still unmarried. How can she be so close to a man who is not her husband? It would be more appropriate for her to return to her mansion." These words caused Lin Ro to cry for 3 days, feeling wronged, and she went to Qi Zhi to cry. I was also severely scolded by Qi Zhi. Hearing that the Marquis was divorcing his wife, everyone in the mansion was shocked. The common people were even more abuzz with gossip, which was like invisible knives stabbing my thin back over and over again. I couldn't block it, nor could I escape it. The Marquis's wife is dignified and polite, and has always been kind to others. How could she be jealous? Those were the Marquis's words. How could they be false? She can't even tolerate her own cousin. I think Tang is just pretending all the time. Speaking of which, Tang has been childless for 3 years. Could she be infertile? I felt only shame. The world is harsh, and women have it even harder. A divorced woman, in this world, is despised by all. He clearly knew what a divorced woman would face. And yet, my father and brothers are dead, leaving me with no one to rely on. He remained unmoved. I clenched my icy fingers, refusing to shed tears in front of him. Chi Ji Li. I was blind and foolish to not see your wolfish heart. Today, I, Tang, wish you a smooth rise to power. When I married Chi Ji Li, he was still a spoiled playboy, spending his days playing with cats and dogs and roaming the streets. Back then, the old lady of the Marquis's mansion was seriously ill. She called me into her room and held my hand tightly, looking very worried. After giving me careful instructions, she suddenly passed away. I was the only one left in the huge Marquis's mansion. I was only 17 years old at the time. Suyue was a maid left behind by the old lady. She was only a few years older than me and helped me keep the Marquis's mansion in order. She suddenly stood up and accused him, her voice filled with tears. Marquis, you have achieved glory and fortune in one fell swoop. Have you forgotten that you promised the old lady that you would take good care of the lady? Even if she was a maid in the Marquis's mansion and the lady was an outsider. Seeing the lady work tirelessly every day, she couldn't help but feel sympathy for her. It was the Yong'an Marquis's mansion that had wronged her. It was wrong to treat Tang like that. Chi Zili was furious. Where did this cheap servant come from? How dare you be so insolent here? Someone, beat this cheap servant who is seducing the master to death. Xu was held by the Marquis's guards and forcibly dragged to one side. The punishment stick was wide and heavy, hitting her body heavily. They were trying to kill her. I struggled desperately to get to her, trying to protect Suyu. But the guards held me back, and I could only watch helplessly. Suyu! Suyu! At first, I could still hear her painful moans, but the sounds grew fainter and fainter. Chi Ji Li, please spare Suyu. I beg you. The guards checked her breath and reported, Marquis, she's dead. The guards finally let me go. Suyu looked like she was asleep. I fell to the ground, hugged Suyu, and cried uncontrollably. I held back my tears and looked at him calmly and desperately, looking at the people around us watching the spectacle. Suyu was loyal to you and the Marquis's mansion. Yet she ended up like this. I am just an orphan girl. How could I possibly compete with the powerful Marquis's mansion? Heaven is just, and retribution will come. Marquis, just wait. After saying that, I slammed my head against the pillar. The intense pain overwhelmed me, and I lost consciousness. Everything around me was silent. I heard His Majesty's dignified voice. Sure, you saved me. Do you have any wishes? This was that year, during the imperial autumn hunt in the outskirts of the capital. Emperor Rinzhao was assassinated and went missing. It was I, a lone orphan, who saved him. When the emperor asked me what I desired, I blushed and replied, I only seek one heart, to grow old together. The emperor arranged a marriage for me. Later, I became the wife of Chi Zili of the Marquis of Yong'an's mansion. I died that winter. Seeing that I didn't say anything, the families of the ministers and officials who were at the hunting ground couldn't help but speculate. She must have asked His Majesty for a marriage alliance. Trying to climb the social ladder. This woman is very cunning. Deliberately staying near the hunting ground. Just think about it. TSK TSK TSK. My son is of marriageable age, please don't match him with her. Those with young sons looked at me with disdain, while the rest laughed at my misfortune. Their words were the same as in my previous life, when I was shamed beyond words, because I had indeed sought a marriage alliance. That day, no one responded at the hunting ground, and I stood there, embarrassed and helpless. Fortunately, the old lady of the Marquis's mansion came to my rescue and said with a smile that she happened to be looking for a marriage for her eldest son. This time, I didn't need her to save me. I raised my head and sneered at them. Have you ever heard the saying? What one person desires, another avoids at all costs. They bullied the weak and feared the strong, thinking I was an orphan with no one to rely on. So I had to endure in silence. But this time, I refused to endure. I laid my words bare, and they turned pale. The emperor, without raising his voice, swept his gaze over them, and they all averted their eyes. The emperor softened his tone and asked me, Shen, have you made up your mind? What do you want? I could vaguely see the admiring gaze of the old lady of the Marquis's mansion. Next to her was Lin Ro, looking jealous. Perhaps it was because I had spoken so bluntly to these noble families. I looked up at His Majesty and bowed. This humble woman does not seek marriage. Only fame, fortune, and wealth. The emperor clapped his hands and laughed. In this world, there is actually a woman like you. You don't want marriage. You only want money. During the reign of Emperor Taizong, the patriarchal system was not yet as extreme as it would become. However, later on, the emperor's power waned, and there were even instances where princesses held power. After that, lessons were learned from the previous dynasty, and women were strictly disciplined, making it difficult for them to step out of their homes. The patriarchal system became firmly entrenched. Women only sought good marriages to spend their lives with, never considering that beyond marriage lies a broader world. Your Majesty, there are many women like me, in embroidery towers and courtyard mansions. They can play the zither, embroider flowers, and possess the grace of orchids and the clarity of jade. They are merely helpless, unable to stand before your Majesty like I do. The emperor pondered for a moment before changing the subject. Wealth and honor I can grant you, but fame and fortune, how can I grant those to a woman? I did not wish to put the emperor in a difficult position. I just raised the corners of my lips slightly and said, Your Majesty, you only need to promise. You don't need to do anything. I only want a golden medal that will spare my life. I will rely on myself to win fame and fortune. His Majesty was safe and sound. So the autumn hunt proceeded as scheduled. During this time, I heard that the eldest son of the Marquis of Yong'an had accidentally fallen from his horse and had been resting for many days. The old lady of the Marquis's mansion sent her younger relatives to invite me to admire the chrysanthemums several times. But I politely declined. In my previous life, she said that she couldn't stand to see others bully people because of their power. She was wise and insightful, and I understood that she wanted to support me, even though I had won the emperor's praise. I still had no one to rely on in Xinjing. But in this life, I never wanted to have anything to do with the Marquis of Yong'an's mansion again. I want to take the imperial examination. When I said this, my maid Cui Shu thought I had gone mad. Miss, since ancient times, only men have taken the imperial examination and become officials. How could women take the imperial examination? Cui Shu tried her best to dissuade me, but I had made up my mind. In order to help Qi Zili pass the examination, I accompanied him in his studies for the imperial examination. I studied diligently every day, and the contents of the books were already engraved in my mind. Since ancient times, I will break this ancient rule. Miss. Someone from the Marquis of Yonan's mansion is here to see you. Unable to refuse. I entered the Marquis's mansion, but only saw Lin Ro. She looked at me with pity and said, Shin Ching Tang, your tactics are quite clever. It's just a pity that you're using them in the wrong place. The Marquis won't fall for your tricks. The old lady invites Shin Ching Tang every day, probably to ask the Marquis for his hand in marriage. She can't help but be anxious. I found it funny. What false charges have you pinned on me? Lin Ro ignored me and suddenly slashed her face, drawing blood. Then she let out a scream. The door was suddenly pushed open, and Chi Li rushed in, worried. Rower! Woo woo woo. Brother Li. Miss Shin said she wants to be the Marquis's wife and told me to get out of here. I'd better leave. Who dares to let you leave? He grabbed my wrist angrily and with disgust, and my wrist quickly turned red and swollen. It hurts. Let go of me. I saw Lin Rong smirking triumphantly, raising her eyebrows nonchalantly. Lin Rong, do you think I have no backup? Lin Ro looked at Chi Li with a pout. I was just here on the old lady's behalf to find Miss Shin. I never expected that mentioning your name would make her. She pulled out a knife and said she'd disfigure me. For a woman, appearance is the most important thing. She sniffled, and I scoffed. Lin Ro, brains are what matter most. Unfortunately, you don't have any. Chi Li's anger flared up because I had mocked his beloved cousin in front of him. He raised his hand, but someone grabbed his wrist. Mother. The old lady was furious. It's my fault for spoiling you since you were a child. How did you become so stubborn? From today onward, you will kneel in the ancestral hall before all the clan members and reflect on your actions. The old lady turned to Lin Ro, who was wiping away tears, and reprimanded her in a deep voice. The imperial examination is approaching, and Chiga needs to review his lessons. After you return to the mansion, don't come to the Marquis's mansion again. Lin Ro and Chi Li suddenly looked like a pair of lovebirds that had been beaten with sticks, both broken-winged. Lin Ro was even carried out by the servants. In my previous life, I merely spoke a single word to her, and she insisted on attempting suicide. This time, the humiliation she has endured would be enough to make her die 1,000 times over. Seeing Lin Rong's pitiful state, I couldn't help but chuckle. What a clown. The old lady spoke slowly. I just don't know how your ungrateful grandson could have gotten into a conflict with Miss Shin. Miss Lin only said that the Marquis wouldn't fall for my tricks. As if she was jealous of me. I knew the truth, but I pretended not to know. I thought that this way, the old lady would not mention the marriage to the Marquis's mansion again. But the old lady sighed and said, Miss Shin, I know you are smart and calculating, and can see clearly the situation in the capital. But you are alone. How can you survive in the treacherous capital? If you are willing, the Marquis's mansion will be your strongest backing in the future. She had said the same thing in my previous life. But unfortunately, times had changed, and she passed away soon after. I looked down at the tea leaves floating in my cup and said meaningfully, Old lady, favor is unpredictable, and beauty will eventually fade. Only with a sharp blade in hand can one overcome all obstacles. The old lady sighed softly. Very well. He is not lucky enough to have such a gift. After returning from the Marquis's mansion, I shut myself in my room for the next 3 months and studied hard. I felt that the higher I looked up, the harder it was to reach, and the harder I dug, the harder it was to break through. I was waiting for an opportunity. In the 10th month of winter, due to the matter involving Princess Wenhua, the renowned scholar Yunpu resigned from his official post and returned to his hometown to teach. I set out from the capital and traveled for 5 days and 4 nights before finally arriving at the gates of the Xingshui Academy. The cold wind blew fiercely, and snow fell heavily. The gates of the Xingshui Academy were tightly closed. I paced back and forth at the entrance, my body stiff with cold. I felt a bit lost. And for the first time, I felt a touch of vulnerability. An hour earlier, I had knocked on the door, but Yunpu had refused me. The academy is for men only. As a woman, it is inappropriate for you to be here. According to the laws of our dynasty, women are not permitted to study in an academy. But I remained at the door, refusing to leave. Several more hours passed, and I stood there, covered in snow and wind. I was nearly unconscious. The academy's door opened. I bowed deeply, my throat dry, my lips trembling. I beg you, sir, to answer this. In this world, should not the capable hold positions of power? If you deny her an opportunity simply because she is a woman, is that fair? Master Yunpu brought me into the academy and agreed to let me study under him. However, I would have to stay after school for private lessons with him. Once inside the house, Master Yunpu noticed. After several hours in the biting cold, my fingers were swollen and throbbing with pain, but I did not utter a single word. Besides me, there was another student under Master Yunpu's tutelage. At sunset, we would meet outside the academy. We would bow to each other and enter the academy to listen to the master's lectures. We had not exchanged names, and she did not know that I had seen her in my previous life. In the Baohua Hall, she had argued forcefully, urging the emperor to execute the treacherous ministers, distance himself from the wicked, and open up channels for free speech, including the establishment of schools for women. However, Emperor Rinzhao favored the middle way and blended in with the masses. The borders were besieged by wars year after year. Taxes and corvée labor were extremely heavy, and the people's lives were extremely difficult. The nobles and aristocrats in the capital, however, lived in luxury and debauchery, indulging in pleasure and neglecting their duties. Just then, a once-in-a-decade drought struck, leaving the people in dire straits. Along the way, starving corpses littered the ground, a sight that was heart-wrenching to behold. The memorials submitted to the court read this year. There was a famine, and people were eating each other. The last news of her was that Princess Wenhua led troops to storm the palace, intending to seize the throne. It is said that the princess hid a knife in her skirt. Despite being surrounded by numerous guards, the emperor was beheaded with a single stroke. The prince consort attempted to take the princess hostage but was also killed with a sword. She killed her father and her husband. The princess was born with a rebellious nature, and her actions shocked the world. But the general arrived in time to save the emperor, and the princess eventually committed suicide by poison. The second prince ascended the throne. Last month, Princess Wenhua had just spoken out in court about reducing taxes and lightening the burden on the people. Unfortunately, her efforts were in vain. I never expected that she had also studied under Master Yunpu. And it seems, she was using a pseudonym. Meanwhile, I heard that the old lady of the Marquis of Yong'an's mansion was seriously ill. So I returned to the capital. I rode my horse all the way there and arrived at the old lady's bedside. The old lady sighed and saw me. Tears flowed from her cloudy eyes. I never thought that after such a turbulent life, I would die with only you by my side. Good child. Good child. She patted my hand and sighed deeply. Then she passed away. It was only then that I heard that Shi Zili had a falling out with her because Lin Ro was kicked out of the Marquis's mansion. They even had a face-to-face argument once, which made her so angry that she fell ill. After that, he took Lin Ro and said he wanted to elope with her. Now, no one knows where they are. As I was leaving the Marquis's mansion, I happened to see someone entering. It was Shi Zili. He was walking quickly, his face a little pale. I bowed to him, polite and humble, without a single flaw. But he seemed even more bitter and lonely. His voice was hoarse, and he seemed to want to say something but stopped himself. He opened his mouth and said, "Ching Tang, is that you? I don't understand what you're saying. Mr. Chi. If you have no business with me, I'll be going now." Chi Zili blocked my way, looking confused. "Ching Tang, I've been having a dream lately. In the dream, you married into the Marquis's mansion and were a virtuous and sensible woman." I curled the corners of my lips in a mocking smile. "Marquis, that's just a dream. Besides, it was only the first half of the dream. Marquis, the old lady has passed away, and you are indifferent. Instead, you are obsessed with a dream that will never come true." How ridiculous. Chi Zili seemed incredulous. "Mother is dead? How is that possible?" I brushed past him and walked out of the Marquis's mansion, only to hear a cry of grief. "Mother, I am an unfilial son." At the academy, my relationship with Princess Wenhua grew closer. She even taught me horse riding and archery. She could ride horses, shoot arrows, and play chess. She was unlike any other woman I had ever met. During our chess games, I played steadily, taking each move with care. She, however, was like an arrow at dawn, sharp and unstoppable. She asked me about my intentions for studying, and I replied, "I only want to secure a place for myself and ensure that all women in the world can have a place in this world." On Princess Wenhua's birthday, I painted a picture of a 1,000-mile landscape and gave it to her. She loved it so much that she gave me a wolf hair brush in return. Though she was thousands of miles away at the academy, nothing in the capital escaped her notice. She helped me disguise myself as a man, change my name, and take the academy exams and the provincial exams. I did not disappoint her expectations. Under the pseudonym Xinqing, I excelled in every major exam. When the spring exams were approaching, we all returned to the capital. When Chi Zili came to find me, he seemed to have completely remembered everything from his previous life. He swore, "Ching Tang, I wronged you in my previous life. This time, I won't. Wait for me. After the spring exams, I will definitely pass and become a jinshi. Then I will come to marry you and let you marry into the Marquis's mansion in style." But behind him, Lin Ro's expression twisted, as if she wanted to eat me alive. I raised my eyebrows. "I'll be your legal wife? Then what about your beloved cousin, Lin Ro? It seems that without you, she's so weak that she can't take care of herself." Chi Zili didn't hesitate. "My cousin can be your co-wife. And you'll be equals. You'll still be the legal wife of the Marquis's mansion." I felt like I had heard something funny. "Ha ha ha ha. You really have a face as thick as a city wall. Chi Zili, the Marquis's mansion you rely on is nothing but a dead end. How dare you say such things?" He actually thought that because I was so humiliated in my previous life that I was forced to commit suicide, I would still be unable to live without him in this life. Chi Zili's face darkened. "Xinqing Tang, don't forget, I am the Emperor's personally selected jinshi. I passed the imperial examination in my previous life. And in this life, I might even become the top scholar. If you refuse now, even if you beg me later, I won't let you in." The path to the imperial examinations is long and arduous, but every step of his journey was one I had measured out for him. He's just a spoiled playboy who can't endure any hardship. How dare he assume he can replicate his past success? I fixed my gaze on Lin Ro behind him, calm and composed. "Fine. Then I'll wait for you to pass the exam." I heard that as soon as he returned to the mansion, Lin Ro had a big fight with him. She called him heartless and ungrateful, and even ran away from the Marquis's mansion. She thought that Chi Zili would coax her as he had done in the past. So she acted so selfishly. Unexpectedly, Chi Zili had lost all patience with her. Later, the Lin family was suddenly investigated for forming factions, embezzlement, and corruption, and their assets were confiscated. All members of the Lin clan, except for the women and children, were imprisoned. At that time, I was at the princess's mansion, chatting with her. Recently, the princess had been performing well in court and was frequently praised by the emperor. Lin Rong had actually sought help from Princess Wenhua. The princess had always known that I detested Lin Ro and Qi Zili. I absent-mindedly stroked the raccoon in my bosom, begged for mercy. But I can't change my father's mind. Lin Ro heard this and thought there was still hope. With tears in her eyes, she said, "Your Highness, I beg you. When I marry into the Marquis's mansion in Yongnan, I will never forget your kindness." Lin Ro knelt on the ground, and when she looked up, I had already walked over to her. When the Lin family was still around, you didn't marry into the Marquis's mansion. Now that the Lin family has been destroyed, how can you be sure that you will be able to marry into the Marquis's mansion? Qi Zili seemed to have the bearing of a man from a distinguished family and the loftiness of a scholar. But in reality, he was a hypocrite who was eager to climb the social ladder. It was my fault for not seeing his true colors in my previous life, which is why I only recognized him for who he really was in this life. Lin Rong saw me standing side by side with the princess and realized. "Qing Tang, you vile woman. You're in cahoots with Princess Yongnan. You two are a pair of traitors, you'll meet a miserable end." She continued her curses. But Princess Yongnan had already grown impatient. "Someone, drag her away." I thought the matter was settled. But to my surprise, Qi Zili dared to come looking for me. "Qing Tang, do it for me. You and Rower will both marry into the Marquis's mansion. Beg the princess to help us. Rower told me that she won't fight with you anymore. In the future, you will be the noble wife of the Marquis's mansion, and she'll be your concubine." I nearly laughed in anger. When did I ever say I wanted to marry you? Qi Zili sighed helplessly. "Qing Tang, don't argue with me now. Ronger's matter is urgent. Besides, in my previous life, I didn't do it on purpose, I had no choice. He's truly a hypocrite. Qing Tang, I'm powerless. The new emperor has ascended the throne, and the Marquis's mansion appears to be flourishing. But in reality, it is not so. You are a woman. You cannot understand how difficult it is to pass the imperial examination. I have no intention of divorcing you. I just want to wait until I have a bright future and bring glory to the Marquis's mansion. Then I will take you back." I spoke with sarcasm. "So, I deserve to have my bones used to pave your path to success?" He said this, enjoying his own wealth and power, yet claiming it was all for me. Qi Zili fell silent. "If it's for your cousin, then find a way yourself. Why come to me? An outsider?" His Majesty finally decided to exile the entire Lin family 3,000 miles away to a bitterly cold place. The journey was long, and they were shackled, unable to move freely, suffering greatly. In order to escape exile, Lin Ro chose a day and entered the Marquis's mansion through a side door in a palanquin. Lin Ro became Qi Zili's concubine. On the day the imperial examination results were announced, the sky was clear and it was a rare good day. Princess Wenhua had sent people to wait early. The people of the capital had been eagerly awaiting the results, curious to see who would be this year's top scholar. As the results were announced, some rejoiced while others grieved. Some were overjoyed, while others wept uncontrollably. I heard a maid exclaim, "He passed. He passed." I saw the name at the top of the list, Qing. He had left everyone else far behind. I didn't feel particularly surprised, only that the hardships had finally paid off. This was what I deserved. I had been waiting for this moment for a long time. I saw Qi Zili standing nearby, straining to see his name. But I glanced quickly, the list seemed to not include him. As I was leaving, I faintly heard Qi Zili's disbelieving voice behind me. "How is this possible? How could I not be on the list? This can't be right. There must be a mistake. He had once sworn he would become the top scholar. Yet here he was, failing to make the list at all. How ironic. Princess Wenhua was the first to hear the good news. I also sent a letter to Yinpu master at the academy. Qing Tang has not disappointed his teacher's teachings. A month later, I entered the Taihe Hall to participate in the palace examination. The palace examination questions were about selecting and appointing talent. I wrote on the paper, establish discipline and regulations. Post them on the pillars of the palace gates. Inscribe them in the official decrees. Begin with the imperial court and the ministers. Distribute them to all government offices. Extend them to the counties and the farthest corners of the empire. Weave them into a comprehensive system, ensuring that nothing is overlooked, leaving no gaps, so that everything is complete and meticulous. The examiner reviewed my answers on the spot, and the emperor occasionally asked questions. Ultimately, he selected me as the top scholar. I wiped away the covering on my face, removed my headdress, and bowed to plead for mercy. Your Majesty, as a woman, I took the imperial examinations, violating the laws of our dynasty. According to the law, I deserve execution. I do not ask for leniency, but only that the punishment be imposed on me alone, sparing future generations. The ministers gasped. The emperor was furious, but when he saw my face, he froze. You are the woman who saved me outside the hunting grounds. Your name is Qing Tang. The emperor suddenly realized. Right. Qing Tang. I did not mention what happened that day. I knew that if His Majesty was willing to spare me, he would bring it up himself. If he was not willing to spare me and wanted to punish me, even if I said something, it would only be futile attempts to repay his kindness. His Majesty muttered to himself. You said you wanted fame and fortune, wealth beyond measure. So it is. The national preceptor once told me that this year's top scholar would be different from previous years, but would protect our dynasty for 100 years of peace and prosperity. The officials downstairs shouted in alarm. Great fortune, Your Majesty. This is an auspicious sign. The ministers knelt and bowed. Congratulations to Your Majesty. Congratulations to Your Majesty. I was puzzled. But then I caught the smile of Princess Wenhua. She winked at me. I understood immediately. The emperor bestowed upon me 1,000 taels of gold and countless jade artifacts. He specially awarded me a jade bracelet with a jade pendant shaped like a spring. Endless silk and brocade flowed into my room. The streets were bustling with people discussing the new top scholar riding through the streets. The top scholar is so handsome. He even passed 3 exams in a row. Is he from the Shin family? Yes. And she's a female top scholar. A female top scholar? What's her name? Her name is Qing Tang. The entire capital remembered the name Qing Tang. I attended the Qiongling banquet and rode my horse to the imperial street. Dressed in red robes and riding my horse, I suddenly recalled this day from my previous life. Qi Zhili passed the imperial examination and, for the sake of his cousin Lin Ro, divorced me despite our high status. This life was completely different. The Lin family was investigated and confiscated, and Lin Ro quietly became Qi Zhili's concubine. Qi Zhili didn't even pass the imperial examination and remained entangled with Lin Ro. This life would be different from now on. Later, I heard Princess Wenhua mention that she had set a trap for the Lin family. She smiled and casually remarked, I never expected the Lin family to be so greedy. They were easily driven out. However, the Lin family has indeed plundered a great deal of the people's wealth over the years. Exiling them is no injustice. War broke out at the border, and Princess Wenhua volunteered to lead the troops. Before she left, I promised her, I will be loyal to the emperor and serve the country. I will only be loyal to Princess Wenhua as my ruler. I will protect the capital for you, so you can go without worry. As the sun set like blood, the princess rode off on her horse, her battle robe fluttering in the wind, her long spear gleaming with a cold light. She left the capital. The silver saddle gleamed on the white horse, and she rode off like a meteor. It was reported that on the battlefield, Princess Wenhua was strategic and courageous, leading her troops into battle. She was unmatched in bravery. Back in the capital, I contacted Mr. Yunpu once more. I mentioned the Princess of the Bright Moon from Emperor Taizong's reign. This was a taboo topic in the current dynasty, as she had ruled for a year like a hen crowing at dawn, and the people had deemed her a national disaster. Mr. Yunpu only replied, "A youth relies on danger as if it were level ground, alone with a long sword, defying the clear autumn." I knew his answer and began to make preparations. The emperor had 3 sons and 1 daughter, but the eldest prince had already died, and the third prince was still young. Only the second prince and Princess Wenhua were eligible to succeed the throne. Most of the court supported the second prince. However, soon a rumor spread throughout the capital that the front lines were in dire straits and requested the second prince to lead troops to reinforce the border. The second prince had been pampered since childhood. How could he be willing to risk his life in the desolate borderlands? Only said, the emperor has only 2 heirs. If both go to the border and something happens in the capital, who will take responsibility? Naturally, no one dared to speak out at such a critical moment. But everyone couldn't help but harbor resentment. As a princess, Wenhua could lead the troops into battle. Yet the crown prince, whom they had pinned their hopes on, was cowardly and afraid of trouble. In recent months, the emperor's health had been deteriorating. Court physicians have come and gone, but none can determine the cause. They only say it is due to the emperor's poor mood, which has caused emotional distress. The border is in turmoil, and the situation remains unstable. The second prince has been making frequent moves, causing unrest among the court officials. I have begun secretly contacting ministers within the court. Though the princess appears to have been idle for years, she holds significant leverage over many ministers. Often, they initially submit out of necessity, but after a few conversations, they come to admire him both in body and spirit. Your Highness is truly cunning and skilled in the art of balance. If we succeed, we will be remembered for generations. Marvelous. Marvelous. Your Highness appoints the capable and virtuous. You uphold righteousness and integrity. Loyal ministers and virtuous officials will ensure that the realm enjoys eternal peace. While I was busy dealing with these old foxes, I suddenly felt uneasy and began to worry about Princess Wenhua, who was far away at the border. I wonder how the battle is going there. Is she safe? The news of the great victory on the battlefield had already reached the capital. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Once she returns to the capital, we can begin to tighten the net. Another month passed, and Princess Wenhua returned to the capital with her troops, greeted by cheering crowds. The people's views of Princess Wenhua had already changed. The second prince had not yet noticed. Congratulations to Princess Wenhua on her triumphant return. Thank you for your great kindness. The people shouted, "Princess! Princess!" The soldiers' faces were flushed with joy. As Princess Wenhua approached, my eyes welled up with tears. You've lost so much weight and grown so dark. Her face bore the scars of the frontier's sandstorms, and her body the wounds of the enemy's blades. I patted her shoulder firmly. Defending the nation is an honor. Princess Wenhua smiled with relief. Yes, an honor. A few days later, the emperor's illness grew worse, and he was on the brink of death, unable to leave his bed. It seemed his days were numbered. Upon hearing the news, the court officials' private struggles intensified. The second prince acted like a clown, jumping around restlessly. The emperor had grown increasingly confused in recent days. Unable to speak, When the imperial physicians entered the chamber to examine him, the court officials waited outside. After a while, the physician emerged and shook his head. We all know that this is probably the end. With no leader, the court officials were in an uproar. Princess Wenhua has been well regarded lately and has been included in the list of potential heirs. I took the lead in bowing and spoke firmly. Everyone has witnessed the long-standing issues plaguing the capital. The emperor is gravely ill. I now request that we support a new ruler. Let Princess Wenhua ascend the throne. An elderly minister from the second prince's faction suddenly spoke up. A woman is unfit for the imperial throne, let alone become emperor. Have you all forgotten the precedent set by Princess Langyue? I remained calm and pressed on. During Princess Langyue's reign, the people lived in peace and prosperity. Yet after Emperor Jing ascended the throne, the witchcraft scandal erupted, leaving the people homeless and suffering. Could it be that this too is the fault of so-called women? Let us compare the second prince to Princess Wenhua. Has the second prince ever witnessed the suffering of the people? Has he ever touched a grain of rice? Has he ever been to the battlefield? Has he ever seen the harsh winds and snows at the border? Water can carry a boat, but it can also overturn it. Our great nation needs a ruler who is in touch with the people, not someone who is detached from reality. I believe you all know the answer in your hearts. The elderly ministers were moved and bowed, saying, "Please let Princess Wenhua ascend the throne." With the pillar of the court leading the way, the other ministers had no reason to oppose it. Soon, the officials outside the hall knelt down and cried out in unison, "Please let Princess Wenhua ascend the throne." The princess's path to the throne was so smooth that I couldn't believe it. Upon further inquiry, it turned out that it was the work of Mr. Yunpu. He had countless disciples in the court, all of whom were grateful for his teachings. He had also specially sought out his old friends from the past and asked them to support Princess Wenhua. On the day the late emperor fell seriously ill, everyone believed he had passed away. Little did they know that the emperor had orchestrated a clever ruse. In recent years, the struggle between Princess Wenhua and the second prince had grown increasingly intense. He gradually felt overwhelmed and began contemplating retirement. He sought to identify a suitable successor among the two, so he feigned illness and watched the two compete from the sidelines. Now that the die was cast, he decided to join forces with Mr. Yunpu and travel the world together. In the third month of spring, the new emperor ascended the throne. Princess Wenhua, now known as Emperor Wenhua, proceeded to the palace hall to receive the homage of the officials and issue the imperial edict proclaiming his accession. Her bright yellow robe, adorned with patterns of dragons soaring over the sea, shone with a faint golden glow under the sunlight, her innate nobility making it impossible for anyone to look directly at her. She ascended the steps with steady steps, turned around, and looked down at the masses below. The ceremonial officials chanted the praises aloud. Empress Wenhua spoke solemnly. "The mandate of heaven is upon me, and the people of the land look to me. I shall follow the way of heaven to govern the people. The peace of all nations is my peace. The blessings of all nations are my blessings. For all generations to come, my realm and the moon shall shine brightly upon the land." All the officials bowed in submission. "Long live His Majesty! Long live! Long live!" After Emperor Wenhua ascended the throne, the Marquis's mansion gradually fell into decline. I heard that the Marquis's eldest son, Qi Zili, seemed crazy, acting strangely all day long and talking nonsense. There was also a concubine in the mansion who was being tortured by him, suffering unbearably every day. I held the powder in my hand and slightly curved my lips. "Recently, I had forgotten to deal with you. From now on, Qi Zili will spend every moment of every day reminiscing about the glory of passing the imperial examination in his previous life. But he will also clearly see that he has nothing in this life. Qi Zili, you will live every day in regret." When Emperor Wenhua asked me what reward I desired, I refused the official position and only said I wished to oversee the affairs of the girls' school. After Emperor Wenhua agreed, the girls' school was established with great fanfare in the capital. Court officials rushed to send their daughters to study, and the common people followed suit, leading to a trend of women pursuing education among the populace. Emperor Wenhua even established a pathway for women to enter the imperial court as officials, open to all who were talented, regardless of gender or age. I stood outside the academy as one by one female students passed by and bowed. Principal. Good morning. Principal. Principal. Some were lively and intelligent, others quiet and sharp-witted, but all of them wore smiles, and they were all in the prime of their lives. Do you regret it? A voice suddenly came from behind me, startling me. I turned around to see Emperor Wenhua. Your Majesty. I was about to bow, but Emperor Wenhua shook his head. Ah, let's not be so formal between us. Your Majesty. What did you say earlier? Regret what? Emperor Wenhua smiled lightly. I'm curious. You didn't enter the imperial court to serve as an official, but instead chose to stay in the capital to oversee the girls' school. Do you regret it? I was taken aback for a moment, then smiled. Your Majesty. You know my heart's desire. Emperor Wenhua raised an eyebrow. What a pity. You can't stay here anymore. There's a vacant position in the court, and after much consideration, I think you're the most suitable candidate. I hesitated, but what about the girls' school? Let that Xiaoyu girl take over. It'll be good practice for her. What do you think? You can trust Xiaoyu, can't you? Your Majesty. Are you considering her as the heir apparent? Shoo. Emperor Wenhua, like the playful Princess Wenhua of old, winked at me.